Okay, happy Monday, folks. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. So today we're going to talk about some of the other industries that were popping up during the Industrial Revolution in the U.S. So, late 1800s. Some of them were in the early 1800s, but the majority are in the late 1800s after the Civil War. So if you remember on Friday, we talked about Thomas Edison, the electrical power industry, the invention of the common everyday light bulb that people could use that created that whole electrical power industry, right? Well, some other ones that we come across are the telephone, invented by Alexander Graham Bell. And going along with the telephone, we have the switchboard, which a lot of you guys might not know what a switchboard is. But a switchboard, if you ever watch any old movies from the 1940s, you pick up the phone, or like if you watch the Andy Griffith Show, right? If you pick up the phone and the operator answers, they say, "Operator, how may I direct your call?" And then you say, "Hey, I'd like to speak to, so and so." Like if Andy Griffith was calling his house, he'd say, the operator's name was Sarah. He'd pick up the phone and say, "Sarah, get me my house," or "Sarah, let me talk to Aunt B." you know, and if you haven't watched the Andy Griffith Show, please do. But that's what a switchboard is. So a switchboard operator, when someone would pick up the phone, they would get a little ding, and they would plug in. They'd say operator, and then they'd say, "Let me direct your call." Then they'd take it and plug it. They'd plug the phone, right? Anyway, that's what a switchboard is. Okay, and that came about because the telephone was invented. Then we had the typewriter. You guys know what a typewriter is, the precursor to a computer. Sewing machines were huge because before the Industrial Revolution, clothes were made kind of, for the individual person, right? Like if I needed a shirt, they'd just get a shirt that was this size and just make it. But during the Industrial Revolution, you got sewing machines, you could manufacture clothes on a large scale now. So now we start seeing those standardized sizes that we have now, the small, medium, large, you know, certain size pants being made, certain size shoes being made. All that sort of stuff is directly because of the sewing machine. And in addition to new inventions, improvements on old ones were just as important, right? Just because Thomas Edison invented the light bulb doesn't mean that that's the greatest light bulb you're ever going to make. I don't know about y'all, but I don't think that this telephone was the same one that Alexander Graham Bell invented, right? So we're constantly seeing how we can improve on these inventions, how we can make them better, how we can add to them, right? The switchboard would have never had to be a thing if it wouldn't have been for the telephone. It came out of the Industrial Revolution because of the telephone. Okay. So, moving right along, some effects of some of these industries, right? These industries that come about. All of these inventions and improvements led to entirely new industries. The electrical power industry, the communications industry with telephone. We'll talk about the automobile industry here in a second. And these industries changed the way society functioned as a whole. The old ways of doing things were not suitable anymore. They wouldn't work. They wouldn't help society move forward. So we've got to find new ways of doing things that incorporate these new industries that we have. And society itself is undergoing drastic changes at this time, which we'll talk about more late this week and early next week. Society is changing all of a sudden, right? All this industry is catching up with society and it's forcing it to change, which society as a whole hadn't really changed for several hundred years at this point. So now all these industries, it's like, oof, we don't know what to do. And then another one of our industries is the automobile industry, probably one of the most famous ones to come out of the Industrial Revolution. So automobiles were invented in the late 1800s in Germany by a man, last name Benz, Mercedes Benz, right? That's where the name comes from. And these early automobiles, they were very, very expensive and very, 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 very hard to make. I mean, it took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money to make these early automobiles. But then comes along a man named Henry Ford. And Henry Ford revolutionized the automobile industry and indeed other industries with his invention of the assembly line. And basically, how the assembly line works is the parts move down a conveyor belt. You stand there. Let's say my job is to put on the left front tire. That's all I would do. Each chassis would come to me. I'd put on the left front tire. It would move on down the line. And when it got to the end of the line, it would be completed. Okay. So he created the assembly line, and manufacture time of these Model Ts that we'll discuss here in a second went from over 12 hours to down to 1 hour and 33 minutes. And that was revolutionary. Okay. So this is what an assembly line at the time would have looked like. You got all these nice cars coming down, these parts coming down. You take these off, put them on the car. There you go, right? And the car that comes off the assembly line is known as the Model T. This is the Ford Model T. This was the first kind of mass-produced car that was meant for the everyday person. It was meant to be affordable. It was meant to be reliable. It was meant to be, something that the ordinary person could afford and enjoy. This is the Model T. And the Model T was able to find great success in what it was designed to do because of Henry Ford's assembly line. Okay. So I'm going to stop you right here. You've got some questions you've either been answering or are going to answer. Make sure that the video finishes in its entirety before you close out of this tab. Because if you don't finish the video completely to when there's 0 seconds left, you won't get credit. Even if you answer the questions, you won't get credit for finishing. Okay? So please, please, please make sure just let the video play after you answer the last question. Just let it play, and then you'll be good to go. All right? If you guys have any questions, let me know. If not, I'm looking forward to seeing you on Zoom tomorrow, and hope you have a great rest of your day.